Hello, welcome to the YouTube channel. Hello, welcome to the YouTube channel Code with Alpha, where we'll basically go over a number of coding concepts starting from uh, Java basics all the way to uh, Java basics all the way to the end of advanced and actually building web application. The goal here is to have each time have two videos, one with a theoretical view of whatever you're looking for, explanation of concepts, and then another video with a more practical view. So the topic that we're looking at today is inversion of control and dependency injection by alpha. Inversion of control and dependency injection by alpha. So as an overview, these are the different things that we are going to cover today. We're going to look at what dependency injection is, what is the invasion of control, basically look at what dependency is. We're going to touch on the auto wiring and the different auto wiring modes. And remember, the goal here is to make a user that uses SpringBoot for web application development to understand the difference between invasion of control and dependency injection. Right, so firstly, when you're looking at object-oriented programming, Java is an object-oriented program, basically meaning we utilize the strength of using objects in order to create our web application, right? So an example is, if you can tell here from looking at what you're seeing here right now, is you can basically tell that we have class A here, and then we also have class A here, then we have class B here. So when class A is methods, we have class A and class B, and then we have class A being able to make a call to a method that is located here, right? So basically, that is an example of having, basically saying class A depends on class B because class A is getting methods from class B, right? So this is what basically we'll be looking at when we are talking about dependency, right? And dependency is very, very important as a concept on its own because classes are supposed to be dependent in order for us to be able to create web applications that are able to, to expand very well, because instead of just creating one class, one big application, we're able to have different classes that are then dependent on each other. When that typically just makes our job a little bit easy. Okay, moving on. Let's put aside the element of dependency injection at this moment and look at what is invasion of control. So when we're basically looking at the SpringBoot application, right? What a SpringBoot application is, it's an application, but a SpringBoot, it's actually a Springboot. If we're looking at Springboot, it's actually a way for us to create web applications. Basically have a template that makes it easy for us when we're creating web application, because initially before Springboot, to do things like get your website just running, you have to first, do a lot of configurations, and Springboot actually came in a way of fixing that for us. That's where the invasion of control actually comes in. Basically, an invasion of control, you want to look at it as a design principle. I know people refer to it as a pattern, but it's a design principle that basically says, hey, this is something that I need, and instead of me doing it, I'm going to let somebody else do it, right? That's IOC, that's invasion of control, basically giving control to another, giving control to another thing or another entity. That makes it easier for you, right? And I want you to look at this one over here, where it's basically, we're basically saying that the goal here is to avoid what is known as uh, the goal is to achieve what is known as loose coupling, right? So what loose coupling is when we're having object, when we're creating objects, basically when we're creating a web application, right? You want to think about it as we're just creating a lot of different objects, right? We have object 1, object 2, and those objects are related to each other, right? So the loose coupling is basically just avoiding creating those objects. For example, usually when we're creating objects, right, we have the name of the class that one, we do it, give it an object name, of course, the new keyword, and the constructor in that case. So what you do there is you achieve what is known as the tight coupling, right? And those tight coupling like that becomes harder for you when you're trying to scale this. So loose coupling is being able to take, the beginning of the class that you want, the name of the class, and then instead of linking it directly with this object, you can link it with another object. Like when you're creating a laptop, right? You're creating some objects and you're linking it with something like Microsoft, because Microsoft comes in as a way to provide you with the hard drive that you're looking at. So those are the elements of loose couplings and tight couplings. I know this is a little bit high level concept, but then basically coming back in initially, as an example of invasion of control is, so for you, instead of then driving your own car going to work, right? You're driving your own car going to work, you hire a cab to drive it for you, or just instead of me cooking food right now and I'm very hungry, instead of making my fish and chips, I actually go on Uber Eats and order macaroni and cheese, and then I eat macaroni and cheese. So I have taken that responsibility for me to cook, and I've given that control to Uber Eats for them to bring food. That is what basically invasion of control is. All right. So that is basically what invasion of control is. So for example, so in this case, invasion of control, it makes, when we're creating an object or setting dependency, becomes very, very easy. For example, so there's this amazing thing that Spring Boot does for us. So whenever you're running a Spring Boot application, there's something known as the bean factory, right? Beans, basically Spring beans are just like Spring. I mean, they're basically just Java objects that are automatically created. Instead of us creating the Java objects manually, we're having the computer actually do it for us. We're having this application, Spring Boot, actually create that for us. So that is the invasion of control. We've given up the control of creating these objects to the framework. So the framework comes in, creates those objects for us, right? Then after those objects are then created, then now at runtime, if we want to get those objects and send them to the different components that we're having in our application, we can then just take that object and then inject it at wherever we want, at whatever component that we want it to. So this is how the invasion of control and dependency injection actually come together. So when I talk about invasion of control, right, instead of creating the object for us, because we basically believe that a Spring Boot application is just nothing but a bunch of objects, that are automatically created by our Spring Boot. Then after those objects are then created, if we then want to use those, so instead of us creating the object, we've given that control to a framework, and then the framework creates those objects. And after those objects are created, um, we can then use what is known as dependency injection by basically taking those objects that have been created uh, by our Spring framework in a process of invasion of control. And then we take that and then we inject them into all the different components that we would want to use. And there's an advantage. I mean, there are a number of advantages for the invasion of control. Number one, uh, those objects now we're not creating it during the standard way that we usually use, and that standard way tends to create objects that are tightly coupled. So basically, that's what is meant by decoupling. That means that the objects that are going to be created are not loosely coupled, which is easier for us to, achieve greater modularity in a program, for us to, when we're planning to test and make a mock of the objects. All of those are very, very easy because of the decoupling that has happened due to the invasion of control. And now that we have shown that instead of creating the objects like a class A and class B, right? So creating an object in class B to access methods in class A, the computer, the framework already did that for us. So if that happens for us, that is something great. That is something amazing. Now, how are we going to use that throughout our program? We then use that through a process called dependency injection, right? If you look at this example, that basically saying that when we have a class called class A, that is utilizing functionalities in class B, right? So usually what we do is we create a class piece of object in class A, and then we use that object to get that information from class B, right? Now think about it. In a big web application, we have in so many different classes and so many different objects that when you actually create them yourself, you might even lose track on which links with that and which links with that, and then it just becomes very complicated, right? So because to avoid that complication, we asked our Spring Boot to actually create the objects for us using the inversion of control and letting the Spring factory create the bins that we're looking for. So like I said, just a Spring bin, uh, you can just think about it just like a plain old Java object, but that is belonging to a Spring Boot application. Right. So now there are different ways to then get those objects into whichever part of our program that we want, right? You can do it by something known as dependency injection, right? And this dependency injection concept can be done, through constructors. You can even do it through setters, and you can do it through field, right? Usually, the constructor based and the setter based. I mean, I've seen programs use it, but I personally believe that the most utilized one is the field-based one. By field-based one, basically what you're doing is you're utilizing a annotation code at at the rate of auto-wired annotation. So what this annotation does is basically it injects whatever object that you're looking for into the specific part of the application that you want, right? So for example, if you have a service class in the repository class, and what you're trying to do is to get your repository, which is how we persist things into the database. If you want to get that repository and use it inside the service, what you have to do is you have to create you can then use the auto-wired annotations for the repository variable that you'd have created, and then on that variable, then you can annotate that variable with it auto-wire. That basically helps you to bring every single thing from the repository class right inside the service class, and then you can then utilize your service with the great functionalities of actually just utilizing all those persistent items that you're getting from your repository class. So that is how a dependency injection and IOC comes in, get connected and actually utilized. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another video where I'll be explaining to you and showing you the actual usage of this concept inside code. With this, I thank you. Siabonga. Thank you very much.